I can stand. I can lie. You are tough.
Tomorrow, they do anything.
I get that when I smell it. I know. I just with my eye. I know, like, you can't tell. I realize sometimes I mouth things too, and I'm like. All right. Lisa, can you hear us? That was like making a little, she said she could hear us earlier, but. Okay. Lisa, can you hear us right now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome. Can you go ahead and start the recording?
Yes, I can hear you.
They're long way away from here compared to what we used to have.
All right, so it is 6:01 on February 16th. So I will call our public forum to order. And all 7 board members and Superintendent Carson Anderson are here. We will start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to try to talk a
a little louder because I'm farther away from the microphone, but for those of you who are here to speak, the microphone is perfectly positioned for you, and you are the most important parts of tonight. So this public forum is to discuss or to hear feedback about grade and school configurations. Last Monday, the school board had a workshop, which is recorded if you want to go back and watch it. Our general consensus is that for next school year, we want to have a high school, middle school, and 2 elementary schools. But what grades are at which schools, which kids go to which schools, that is still ultimately to be determined. And that's what we are here to get feedback from all of you about. We have received many emails from parents and students and teachers and administrators about their perspectives for all of that. And it is all stuff that we are taking into consideration. So I'm going to go over our public forum rules, and then I will turn it over to Superintendent Anderson to kind of give a quick overview of where we're at with the process. So we expect that comments be limited to 3 minutes per person, and tonight's forum is all about this grade level and school configuration. So we ask that your comments be on topic for that. We will listen to the public comments. We may or may not ask questions back with you, but we won't really be discussing the issue or making any decisions tonight. But that will happen at a future board meeting. We expect that comments remain respectful and appropriate and not identify any current or former students, their families, or staff members by name. I think that's it.
So as Ms. Ostendorf mentioned, we did have a school board workshop a couple of weeks ago, and the school board reviewed about 10 different options that the administrative team had developed and analyzed on a real cursory level. We discussed that at the workshop, and we came to a consensus on 2 of them as kind of a starting point for the next round of consideration. So nothing is set in stone. We're truly interested in public feedback. We will take that feedback into consideration as we consider these options. There are a few more factors or considerations that are critically important. At the next board workshop, we'll be talking about transportation options. That would include, what would transportation look like for these 2 options, or perhaps a different option that may come up. We'll also be talking about 1-tier or 2-tier bus routing. And both those issues have some financial ramifications, so we need to include that in our discussion. Later this spring, we will also be talking about what our budget reconciliation target will be for next year, and how personnel could factor into these options as well as the budget reconciliation process. So there are numerous factors that we have to seriously consider. And I will credit the board for starting this process early in the spring instead of waiting until later in the spring. That gives us time to get lots of public input and really look at options for grade configurations while factoring in transportation, budget reconciliation targets, and personnel. So we're going to do what's best for the school district, the community, and of course, most importantly, our students. But it's going to take some time, and this is part of the process. So thank you for coming tonight. If I could just, hopefully everyone has a handout. It's a 1-pager and they're in the back of the room if you don't have one. The first option really assumes Sunnyside is a kindergarten and 1st grade school. Burnside would serve grades 2 through 4. Twin Bluff would be a 5-7 middle school, and the high school would be an 8-12 high school. You can see the pros and cons. for this particular option. I won't go over those in detail because you can read it yourself. If you turn to the back side of that document, you can see option 2. Sunnyside would be a K-4 school. Burnside also a K-4 school. And then again, Twin Bluff would be 5-7 and the high school would be 8-12. So again, these are the 2 options that kind of were the top priorities, at least during the workshop. Since the workshop occurred, there were a couple of more options that were kind of thrown out there. One of them would be a 5-8 middle school. However, I will say that we just don't have enough rooms in Twin Bluff to accommodate that for the coming year. Another option was having a 6-8 middle school plus some 5th grade classrooms. So again, I just want to throw those out there because they really surfaced since the last workshop, and I want to be open and honest that, those at least will be considered, I assume, during the process. But right now, these are the 2 options that we're really focused on right now.
All right, so the first person I have for public comment, and if you would like to still sign up, you can. There's a sign up at the back. But the first person that we have is Stanley Nerhaugen, the second.
The second. Dad did not want to be a senior.
Oh.
My name is Stan Nerhaugen, and I worked in this district 30 plus years, and I actually taught or worked in 4 different middle schools, 7-12 school, 7-9 school, 9-12 schools, and was the administrator in the building when Washington School was kindergarten only. So I've had some experience in age groupings, and you can make anything work for short term. When I looked at your original information, it indicated that Sunnyside would be K1 and preschool, but it's not here. So I don't know if that's a change you've made since that first information went out.
And if I could just jump in real quick, and we won't do this with every speaker, but if we had K1 at Sunnyside, that would be, we'd assume 16 classrooms. And so we would have 4 available, and those could be used for early childhood offerings.
And that might affect Caldwell School, but.
It might impact or not, right?
Okay. Comments I had was, I understand what we're working through. Transportation, parent impact, groupings with kids, how long you're in the building, and those parts on there. The effect on specials and travel and that part, trying to balance things. Some of the things I have experienced over the years. A building has a culture, and especially very young kids. I think being able to be in a building for a period of time, not just 1 or 2 years, allows them to be part of that culture in that building. And it helps them at their age, they're growing. By the time they get to the middle school, high school area, they're starting to group in peers. At young age, they really go from grouping. My option, I tend to favor option 2 for that reason. For kids to be in a building just 1 or 2 years and then go to another building, they're still trying to figure things out. They're still trying to figure out when they get to the middle school too, but that's another thing. You're emphasizing, is it financially sustainable? It's one thing letting the community know, this is why we're doing this. We have limited dollars. This is what makes sense to do it, because we can do it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It shouldn't be something that you try for just 1 or 2 years. So involve the community, involve the staff in your process. I like the fact that you've made a comment in your options and disadvantages of impact on special ed in some of your titles, programs in option 2. One of the things I realized from experience is that many of the referrals came in 1st through 3rd grade. When you have a K1 and a 2-4, they may just be starting to look at the kid, doing pre-referral interventions, and then the next year they're in another building, and you're starting all over again with a new group of specials. As a special ed teacher, one of the advantages we had was I didn't work with just one grade at a time. I might have kids, well, here 7 through 9. But as an elementary teacher, might have kids 2, 3, 4, 5 in my room. And I could see the growth, and I could see where they weren't making the changes in growth over a period of a couple of years, rather than say, well, that's a special ed teacher in grade 2. I don't know what they're going to do when they get to grade 3. So I think there's some advantages to having your option 2. And if I can do a side thing, it's not an option here. My own experience has said that grades 5, 8, I think should be considered somewhere down the road. It's got to fit within the number of kids and number of rooms available. I think you have 8th grade with the culture of the middle school. So my experience is a better match, but that's not tonight's discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Do we have other people signed up?
Yep, Miss Julie Martin.
Okay.
Hello, I am Julie Martin. I teach here, and I have 4 children who are, 2 of them are exiting into the schools here. I don't know if I can be. Oh, okay, sure. Well, anyway, I appreciate you listening to me. My concerns are, I am in favor of option 1, which is grade level centers. And the reason that I'm in favor of that is I'm worried about equity with our school configurations. I feel like if there's grade level centers, then all the kids get the same curriculum. All the second graders get the same exposure to the same books and advantages. If, sometimes teachers write grants. If there's teachers that have a lot of extra time to write grants and there's fancy microscopes at one school, but the other school doesn't get it, I feel like grade level centers level the playing field. I also strongly feel that, or I'm not an expert on the demographics of the district, but to me, it seems that a lot of our Native American students are in the Burnside, would be in the Burnside School District. And a lot of our Hispanic students would be in the Sunnyside School District. And it hasn't been that long ago. I have a colleague who told me that the first time he met an African American student was when he went to Twin Bluff. I think that we have a close-knit community. I think friendships are formed in kindergarten. I think we need to, as soon as we can, we need to get all of the people that we have in our community together and the parents working side by side from the different cultures and communities. I think that's going to be best for all of our kids so that they aren't waiting until middle school when the friendships and the cliques are already well entrenched. That's my view about that. I also am concerned as a parent of kids who were formerly ELL and special needs that because of the budgets, I always feel like those types of kids are riding the bus no matter what, because of finances. So it's not as if nobody's riding the bus. I think what will end up happening is, I mean, this is just my idea, but that the ELL kids, if we go with option 2, we have to make sure that the ELL kids aren't riding the bus to one school because of finances, and the special ed kids aren't riding the bus to one school, because we can't just have it be the kids, the white kids without special needs and foreign language, at home that are, not riding the bus. But anyway, so thank you for listening. My concerns are with equity and building community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't have anybody else signed up to give public comment. Is there anybody else who would like to? Okay. Gretchen, right?
Your name's on the sheet back there?
No, my name is not on the sheet. I wasn't going to speak. I am a building sub at Sunnyside. I have been working in the district since 2017. I started as an EA at Sunnyside. As a building sub, I have traveled to both Sunnyside, well, to all of them, Sunnyside, Twin Bluff, and Burnside, while we have been a K-6 model. And there are just a few things. I truly understand Julie's concerns about equity, and I just wanted to apply to a little bit of that from what I've seen. First off, all of the kids throughout all of the grades, no matter what school they're going to, are all receiving the same curriculum. They're all receiving Wonders curriculum through reading. They're all receiving the same books for math. PLC groups between the grades are very much interconnected between the schools. They do have PLC groups once a week where they all get together, and I know that some teachers between buildings talk more throughout the week as well. There was a little bit of concern about friendships that they materialize in kindergarten. The problem with grade level centers is that you have so many kids that are being shuffled around between kindergarten and first grade or between second and third grade, that from what I've heard in the past, that a lot of kids don't end up in the same classes as kids previously. So they end up having to make a whole lot of new friends because they're being shuffled between 10 classes instead of 2 or 3. So a lot of times kids end up in classes from one grade to the next and they don't know anybody. If you have only 2 or 3 classes for each grade, then there's a chance that they're going to know more kids throughout. I do agree that kids need a chance to build a community, a sense of belonging. And I do think that if you have this, and if kids can grow that out of K through 4, then they can not only grow in friendships because they're close in their community, but then they gain responsibility and leadership throughout the school, because when they get to 4th grade, they're going to recognize, hey, now it's my turn to lead, and you give them that responsibility. I also agree that some kids can't, we've just seen it firsthand that some kids just have a really hard time with transitions. And I think you're going to actually create more problems, probably with behavior, if they do have to transition after 1st grade, especially for those kids where this is an issue. And then all of a sudden they're going into a new school and they have to learn, meet new faculty. They don't get to build those strong bonds with faculty. And I've seen firsthand that those bonds between faculty members, all staff, and kids is really crucial for their well-being and their academic achievements. And I'm not just talking about with their classroom teacher, I'm talking about with the student support coordinators, I'm talking about with paraprofessionals, social workers. And when they can build that and they can build that level of trust, especially if they're not getting that level of trust elsewhere, I think that's going to be huge for them. And that's not something they're going to get if they're changing schools after every 2 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very true.
What was her name?
Are we wanting people to sign up for the speaking, or are we just open to?
Ideally, yes. But, you know. So I have Ms. Whitcomb checking the sign-in list. That's why I deputized her with that authority so that we wouldn't have to get up and run back and forth all the time. So, is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay.
Hi, my name is Jill Fonslow, and I have 4 children, 2 of them which are in the district currently. I'm also a former student of the district, so I just thought I'd give my input as a parent. I know that there are definitely benefits to both options. First of all, on option 1, it does say that the schools are built for students assigned, but Burnside and Sunnyside were both built as K-5 schools, so I'm not sure how that is a benefit listed on option 1 when really it should be under option 2. Having attended Burnside right as the first year it was built, I know that there's kindergartners there. But also I just want to say the importance of option 2. There is a sense of community that we lose with option 1. We no longer have parent advisory councils at any of the schools. Having to decide, do I support my first grader and my kindergartner or my third grader is, I mean, when you have to decide on time, you have to choose one, and no parents aren't going to choose like, oh, I'm going to have this cool thing for my kindergartner, but sorry, the second grader, you don't get that. So we've lost that completely. And I think that has had a big impact on the sense of community in our town. I know this year when we went, or coming in post, kind of like slightly post-COVID, that there were a group of parents who really wanted to bring back PACs to our schools. But because of the limbo that we're in, it was shut down pretty quickly. So I know that the desire is there. I also think that we've lost the sense of community within the school, and with that, we've lost the sense of pride. Kids are being shuffled from school to school, so you're never like, I'm a Sunnysider, this is my school, this is my home. You're like, oh, I'm kind of temporarily here. So I feel like kids and people in general take better care of their home than they do a hotel or a temporary place. So I think having that continuation of this is who I am, this is where I'm proud to be, is very, very important. I also, with the grade centers, having all the younger kids at one school, all the older kids at the another, you lose that buddy system. You don't have your 4th grade or your 5th grade reading buddies with your kindergartners and first graders. You don't have them showing them like, hey, you can't really read too good right now, but in 2 years, you're going to be reading just like me. You lose that mentorship between student to student. Also just busing situations, having older siblings on a bus with younger siblings is something that's important to me. Also, less being shuffled around. I know that equity is a big a big concern, and I don't feel like in Red Wing we have just one area where all the disproportionately income people live. If you look around at income-based housing, it's in every pocket of the district, and no matter where, there's going to be busing to both schools. So I don't feel that my child isn't going to be in class with people of different ethnic or diverse backgrounds or income level backgrounds. We're at Twin Bluff now, and I know my friends or my kids have friends with all different colors of skin and all different incomes, and I think that is fantastic, and I think that will continue through no matter what. I just want to say from a parent perspective, I think about 99% of the parents that I've spoken with, and I do own a store downtown, and I talk to a lot of parents, and almost everyone is like, oh, I please hope that we get the K-5 ideally, but K-4 if we have to, situation back. Also, I'm really thankful that 7th graders aren't going to be at the high school anymore. And I'm hoping we can swing 8th graders back to middle school, but I know that's another thing. But I just want to emphasize how I feel like our schools have lost their sense of pride and their sense of ownership since we've been K1 and 2 a little bit, and then the 2 through 4. So hopefully you take that into consideration.
Sorry, who? Ms. Kim Hudson. Kim Hudson?
Good evening.
Huh?
You can sit if you like.
Oh, thanks. I agree with some of the things the last parent said, but I do think I kind of reached out to Carson about it too, that everything keeps changing, and I feel like that it should stay how it is because everybody's gotten accustomed to it now. Then next school year, it'll be another big change.
And I think that kids right now have kind of built relationships with staff and, other kids at the schools that they are at. And then now they move to another school and I have to start over. Like me, example, two of my kids are not that old, but Mr. Palmer said, "Don't kill me." I had a real interesting conversation with him earlier, but I just think that it's hard for some kids to start a new school, shuffle around, feel comfortable, make new friends, build a rapport with their teachers versus the people they've been knowing. If that makes sense. I mean, they've already been going up and down, this and that. Not saying it's y'all fault, but the world. But I'm just saying that's just how I feel about it. And another question is, if you do this, are the times going to go back to how they were, like the starting times going to go back to where they were before COVID hit? That was a big question as well, because it was helpful for the older siblings to ride with the younger siblings. For me, to say if I had a job that I worked 9 to 5, and I wouldn't have to worry about, who's going to be at the bus stop, or who's going to pick them up because I don't get off till 5. So that part does sound good, but my original thing, I still feel that I don't think it should change, but people have their reasons for why they think it should change back. But kids have already kind of built relationships with people at the school, not just because of their friends, but like staff they trust, or it could be kids who struggle with certain things or different things. They've already built relationships with certain people. But that's all I have to say, really.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Good seeing you, Kim.
Is there anybody else?
We want that. It's the time to come up and speak if you'd like. We'd love to hear from you.
Some Midwestern, everybody's like in the back.
Just like church.
Well, if you think of things later, definitely reach out to us. We have received a lot of emails, and I can say that I read all of them. I don't always have time to reply to all of them, but I do read them. And I think, I can only speak for myself on this, but, even if, we go to a model that is not necessarily what somebody has said that they want, there might be elements of what they've said that we try to incorporate. So I'm not making any promises, but just the idea that, if having all of your kids ride the same bus is something that's really important to you, that might be something that we take into consideration. We can't promise that that's necessarily what's going to happen, but even if we hide your kids at separate schools, just anytime, any of the things that you guys are thinking of, I think it's really helpful to hear, for us to keep that in consideration and to try to figure out ways that we can accommodate as much as we can. We can never please everybody, and I think no matter what we choose, there are going to be elements of it that aren't going to necessarily be the best fit for your particular family, but we're going to try to do our best and hopefully meet as many needs as possible. So,
Could I add a quick comment? One thing too that we want to acknowledge is that this decision is for the upcoming school year. Oh, sure. We are also undertaking an educational planning process. We're interviewing some firms this spring that will help shape our plans long term. So what we're doing, over the next couple meetings is making decisions about the upcoming year, but the educational planner will shepherd us into a long-range plan. So obviously what we want to do for next year, we're hoping is consistent with a long-range plan, but we have more to come.
Well, and just to piggyback on the back of that, I would say, yes, we're gonna do long-range planning, but in the short term, I think what's really important to note is that we want as few disruptions as possible for kids. So what's the best for kids? That's really, you know, what our primary focus is. For instance, we don't want to say, we're gonna put all 5th grade in this building, but next year we're gonna put them all in this building. We want as few transitions as possible, and so that is going to be paramount in all of our decision making.
And we're not here to debate it because it's not on our agenda to talk about it. So if you, those that came late, wondering if we're gonna talk about, it'll be talked about, like they said, the next few meetings, because they're compiling everything to come back with a recommendation for us to discuss. So I
Correct.
want to thank everybody for coming out tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Most we've had for a while here.
You're all welcome to come back on Tuesday. It's a great time.
All right.
So for a timeline, on Tuesday, the 22nd, at this point, the plan is to talk about transportation, during our workshop. So during a workshop, we don't make decisions, we don't vote on anything, it's just discussion and sharing information. It's sort of like a committee meeting. And then our regular meeting will follow when we do have the option to vote on things. I don't know that we will be voting on, we may or may not be voting on the school configurations on Tuesday. We kind of have a lot to digest, and the administration has a lot to digest to give us recommendations on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the 22nd. But I think that I can speak for all of us that we would like to have a decision sooner than later so that we can all move on and make decisions and plans accordingly. So if not the 22nd, there may be more things that need to be decided, you know, into March, but the goal is to have this all done soon. Yeah, did I miss anything?
No? Well, I guess.
Okay, go, last chance. Anybody else want to talk? All right, hearing none, I will adjourn the meeting
I'll make a
at,
motion to adjourn the meeting.
okay.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Tower. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All right, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:35. And again, thank you all for coming, and hopefully we will see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Hello there.
I was so pleased to read about the